Hi guys, Scott Woodward with you to talk about the New Zealand Warriors and their prospects in the NRL 2013 competition. And look, let's get the negatives out of the way first, because I think there's some upside for them this year. Certainly they finished 14th last year, which is just, given the quality of their list, is just disgraceful. A lot had to do with attitude rather than form, because the players certainly had the ability. But look, we've got a new coach, and I suspect that the Warriors selected Matty Elliott as their coach because he's an easygoing guy, and he's not one of those guys that scream at the players like they're school children, which doesn't go down that well with the Polynesian guys. And Matty Elliott is a very popular guy and a very easy guy to be around, and they may think that his methods will be suitable to the Warriors. You know, I wish him all the best, but some very good coaches haven't had a lot of luck in previous years. Obviously, Brian McClellan had a 33% win record with them, and prior to that, Ivan Cleary, who had them from 2006 to 2011, only had a 50% win record. And that tells you a little bit about the club. That wasn't because of lack of attitude. In my opinion, one of the main reasons why the Warriors have never done very well over the last decade is a lack of an organising halfback. They've always had the great grunt in the forward pack, and they've always had speed out wide, but they've never had an organiser and somebody to call the shots. And for the first time in a long while, they bring back Thomas Lulahai from the UK, and while he's not an out-and-out superstar organiser, he's got a lot of experience, and he's a good talker, and he will organise, and he'll take that role. And it's a role that Shaun Johnson had to take on last year, and he's just not an organiser. Shaun Johnson is a Benji Marshall type player who likes somebody to put him in a gap, give him the ball with a bit of space, and run around and beat 2 or 3 players. That's what Shaun Johnson is, and to make him an organiser is way out of his comfort zone, especially for a kid that young. And we just never saw the best of him. He had a terrible season last year. Just like when we had Benji Marshall playing halfback, we don't see the best of him. It's not till he actually gets somebody can organise for him and be able to get the ball in space when you see the real God-given talent. So hopefully Thomas Lulahai will make a big difference to the Warriors this year. I think he is a massive in. I think some of the players that they've lost are significant, particularly I'm a big fan of Lewis Brown. I think he's a big loss. I don't know about James Maloney. He had an ordinary year last year, and he was one of those guys. He was just a runner, and he's not the organiser, which is a problem for the Roosters. He's gone to the Roosters this year, so I'm not sure if that's a loss. And the Warriors may end up on the plus side here if Shaun Johnson can play second receiver and Thomas Lulahai can be the first receiver. That may very well be the big upside that they need, because they'll always have the good forward pack, and we're going to talk about that in a sec. To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure who the starting 13 will be, because they've got a new coach, and I'm not quite sure what they're going to do. But certainly Kevin Locke, if he's fit and well, he's only a little guy, and he couldn't sustain the week in, week out of getting bashed up at fullback last year, and he didn't last the season. But he's back fitter and well, and he's a representative fullback, and I expect him to be the fullback for New Zealand in the Anzac Day Test. An outstanding rugby league fullback, Kevin Locke. They really do need him there. Bill Tupou, I think, will fight out the number 2 position on the wing with Glenn Fishiahi. Fishiahi is look, he's one of those players that just keeps busting tackle after busting tackle. He's got speed that you can't believe, but he also has got some negatives in his game, and he's been struggling to hold down a first-grade position. So maybe a new coach, we might see the real Fishiahi, because no one has ever doubted his ability. On the other wing, Madhu Vadavai didn't have a good season last year. Played with a lot of injuries. If he's got those right, he might come back to his best, but disappointing season for Big Manu last year. In the centres, the Warriors have bought Dane Nelson, which surprised me. I would have thought they would have a lot of guys in that area. Simply because they've bought him and he played State of Origin, they have to play him, and he'll probably keep Jeremy Rapate out of that position, and I'm assuming young Conrad Hurrell will be the other centre, who was an absolute blockbuster, but he's just a barge pole, doesn't have any skills. So, Dane Milson and Harrell are two different type of forwards. One's a good defender and one's a good attacker. Be interesting to see how they go, and if that's the way that the coach will go. The 6 and 7 is going to be the big call by the coach. I've said to you that I think Sean Johnson should be 6, and I think Thomas Lulahai should be the 7. Carlos Chumavavi will be in contention for one of those positions as well. He's been around for a while now, jogging on the spot. Won a lot of premierships in the lower grade for New Zealand. Just hasn't been able to hold down a first grade position. Interesting to see what the coach thinks of him. The coach thinks a lot of Harry Seeker, brought him over from Penrith, and I wouldn't have thought he would have brought him over to go trout fishing. So I'd be interested to see what he does there. I haven't seen enough of Harry to say that I think he's a genuine first grader. What I've seen of him, there's no way I would have been buying him. I have to say that. I wouldn't have bought Nelson. I wouldn't have bought Seeker. So the other guy that will be in contention is Peter Godinet. He can play 6, 7 or 9, and he will certainly be a contender there. So look, the Warriors have got a lot of plays in contention for the 6 and 7 positions. The only thing we know for sure is that Sean Johnson will be one of them, and I can't imagine that Thomas Lulahai won't be, even though he can play 9 as well. But for me, it's Johnson and Lulahai, and they'll combine with Nathan Friend. Nathan Friend gives them a lot of stability up front. He's a 40 plus, 50 plus tackle guy every game, and you just got to have him in your team. I know they've got Alahara Mara there, who can come in or even come off the bench, but for me, to have him playing 80 minutes, and he is an 80-minute player, it gives you the opportunity to play another big forward off the bench. So that's the way that I'd be going. And look, let's talk about the big forwards. Certainly Ben Matulino rose to prominence last year as one of the world's best prop forwards. He's certainly in the top 3 prop forwards in the world, in my opinion, and he's a standout as the best prop forward for New Zealand. Ben Matulino would be one of my forwards. I'd have Sam Rapira as my other prop forward, also world class. You've got 2 incredible prop forwards there, Sam Rapira and Ben Matulino. If those 2 guys can stay fit and on the ground, you know that the Warriors will be getting good go forward all the time. All I have to do is minimise their mistakes. The Warriors have never been good for errors. It's an area that they've fallen down in. They do all the hard work, get themselves into a wonderful attacking position, and then they turn over the ball by doing something stupid. That's an area that the coach has to work on. The back row, Simon Mannering picks himself, wonderful club player, wonderful captain, never has a bad game, just a sensational player. Feleti Mateo had a wonderful year last year. He's been a fantastic pickup by the Warriors. Look, I don't know whether he'll start or whether he'll come off the bench, but he's the one side in the Warriors side who can get offloads. You can have 2 or 3 guys hanging off him and he'll still get the ball away. I think he's even a contender to play 6 if something happens to Sean Johnson. Wonderfully talented player, Feleti Mateo. I think he will be a consideration for State of Origin this year. Elijah Taylor, one of those workaholic lock forwards that every club I think they have to have. He actually goes okay off the mark. He can bust tackles. He can play in the centres, but he's big enough, strong enough, and got a high work rate. For me, he's an absolute must at lock forward. He would be my lock forward, despite the fact that they've bought Todd Lowry. Todd Lowry is just a good club player. Probably unfair to call him a plotter. No, I think he did wonderfully well at the Storm. But I can't see Todd Lowry getting in front of Taylor, in my opinion. So to have Rapira, Matulino, Mannering, Mateo and Taylor as my forward pack, that's an outstanding pack. And to have guys that can come in like Lowry, who will continue on the high work rate, have Russell Packer making an impact off the bench, and guys like Sam Luisi. Unfortunately, his brother Sion has got injured, may not play this season now. And got some other guys whose names I struggle to pronounce. Jacob Lilliman is another guy who will be on the bench. I don't think he will start. He will start if there's injuries, but Lilliman is a guy who always makes an impact when he comes on. Steve Rapira is another guy who did well last year, and I've got a big opinion of John Pallavi. I think you'll be seeing plenty of him in 2013. And Ben Henry is a guy that the previous coach had a high opinion of, and kept on playing him in the centres. For me, he's a back rower, but there's a lot of depth in the back rower, and I don't know if we'll be seeing a lot of Ben Henry. But he's one of those guys that's good to have off the bench, because you can put him in the back and you can put him in the forward, so he may be there for that reason. But the coach always knows that he can always play Simon Mannering in the centres. It's a nice thing to do. So look, there it is for me. Clearly the key is going to be the coach finding a combination with his 6 and 7. It's the reason why the previous coaches haven't done well for the New Zealand Warriors in previous years. And the biggest thing that the coach has got to work on is getting the guys mentally fit, not just physically fit. They surrendered last year an 18-point lead and a 19-0 lead. 18-0 and 19-0. This team was leading last year, and they ended up surrendering those leads and getting beaten. And then they come out the next 2 weeks and conceded 97 points. That's not ability, that's attitude, and the coach had to go for that. So we have got a new coach. I have to say, while like a lot of coaches in the NRL, Matty Elliott is one of those guys who everyone says is a great guy. But I have to say, you look at his record, he has a 44% win record, and for a coach to be coaching first grade for 10 years with a 44% win record, you have to say that he's very, very good in an interview, and he's got a very good manager, and good luck to him. But 44% for Matty from 2002 to 2011 is probably not the type of guy that I would have been recruiting for the New Zealand Warriors. But let me say, he can't do any worse than what the guys that were there before him do, and it may very well be that his style works for the Polynesian guys. Let's hope so, because when they're fit and firing, it's good for rugby league, and they're a wonderful team to watch. They've got so much talent, and I just love watching them play. So I don't think the Warriors will make the 8. I don't think they'll play semi-final football. But if the coach happens to get the 6 and 7 right, and he gets their attitude right, they're quite capable of beating any team in the competition. There's no doubt about that. One thing for sure, I think they'll kick off with a win. They're lucky enough that they play Parramatta without Rennie Matua, their best forward, and I think that will be a pick-up gimmick game for them. So they'll kick off with 2 points. Not a bad way to start the competition. Good luck if you follow the Warriors. Talk to you later. Cheers.